Okay, it being the evening of January 11th, Happy New Year to all. And a quorum being present, I'll call the meeting of the Bellingham Conservation Commission to order pursuant to Governor Baker's signing of Senate Bill 2475, an act related to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency as extended by the state legislature in July of 2022. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will meet utilizing the Zoom online option. Instructions and invitations are available at the town website, www.bellinghamma.org. In the event of technological difficulties, remote access is not guaranteed and the commission cannot be held responsible. Moving forward in this meeting, the chair instructs the meeting administrator to withhold access to speak at the meeting until or unless such persons requesting to speak are visible on screen and respectfully request such access. Okay, the meeting is officially open. We will proceed with the first continuation. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposed 19-lot residential subdivision entitled Prospect Hill Estates, located at Assessor's Map 69, Parcel 87, and Map 65, Parcels 20 and 22 off Lake Street, Bellingham, and Prospect Street, Franklin. Project includes 19 residential lots, roadway, utilities, grading, and stormwater management system. The project proposes impacts of 35 linear feet to bank, 80 square feet of land under water bodies, 490 square feet of bordering land subject to flooding, 580 square feet of bordering vegetated wetlands with 1,200 square feet of replication, and total impacts to riverfront area of 126,674 square feet. That includes 52,049 square feet of inner riparian area and 74,625 square feet of outer riparian area. That includes 5,249 square feet. Sorry, I misread it. 74,625 square feet of outer riparian area. Paul McManus, Ecotech, Worcester, Mass. has submitted the filing on behalf of Lou Petrosi, Wall Street Development, Westwood, Mass. The continuations will be held online via the Zoom option on Wednesday, January 11th at 7. Okay. What I propose to do is we've had a couple of lengthy site evaluations. And what I would propose to do here is to go over some of the things that have occurred since our last actual in-person meeting, which was October 26th. So on October 15th, we met on site with the applicant's representative and with members of the commission and our peer reviewers to begin evaluation of the condition of the soils in areas that were presumed by the applicant's representative to be degraded resource areas due to the non-existence of topsoil. We spent a great deal of time doing that evaluation. We accomplished probably estimating 60% of that work. And due to time constraints of one of our consultants, we proceeded to walk the proposed alternative. I believe it's alternative 4 that will turn up in the alternatives analysis to look at the viability of that as an alternate access to the property. We also evaluated the area and condition of the spot where there was a deposition of amount of brush, trees, roots, and that under the enforcement action was ordered to be removed. At the end of that 4-hour inspection, we agreed to meet on site again and to continue the evaluation, and also at that time to review the area that had been cleaned up. On December 6th, only the applicant's representative from Ecotech, Matt Byrne, and our soil specialist and myself were present on the site, and we continued the evaluation of the soils. We agreed on site that what we would be looking at was the absence of topsoil only, not whether or not the absence of topsoil constituted degraded riverfront. We made adjustments to the original plan based on the absence of topsoil, and I think we're waiting for that to be provided to us. We also evaluated the mean high annual watermark that was altered on a plan due to the fact that debris and objects were removed from the culvert, and it appeared that the mean high annual watermark was artificially lowered at that location of the crossing. Based on our field observations and concurrence with Ecotech, we found that 2 of the criteria necessary for possibly 3 of the criteria necessary for determination of mean high annual water were present, that being the histosols, low gradient channel, and the potential oxbows. That result was followed up in the communication from Paul McManus, who concurred that the mean high annual watermark was in an area as previously indicated. So that concluded pretty much in a nutshell the site visits. Does Matt or Paul anything to add to that, or is that pretty much it?
No, Cliff, I think that was a good summary of what we've accomplished on site.
I think so. I guess I perhaps didn't understand what you said. The one thing, Mr. Chairman, about looking at absence of topsoil versus degraded. You seem to be making a distinction there that I didn't understand.
Oh, okay. Well, in the field, Matt, there were 4 of us, and we talked about the fact that there was an absence of topsoil, but that did not necessarily constitute degraded riverfront. And we talked about it, and we in fact joked about the fact on several occasions, saying, well, we're talking only about absence of topsoil. So what we're saying here is that we concur that there are some areas where there's an absence of topsoil.
Okay, yeah, I think I used the phrase that something along the lines of, in order to keep moving, let's concentrate on agreeing on what we see, and we'll talk later about what it means. Is that essentially what you're referring to?
Well, I will get to what it means, I think, when we start doing the alternatives analysis, if you will. What I'm trying to determine is, we were in the field, these are the things we saw. We agreed with your evaluation about the areas where there was an absence of topsoil.
Okay, fine. That's fine. I won't belabor the point.
Okay. So again, we did get your letter relative to the mean high annual water, and we got your proposal, your alternatives analysis, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. I just want to get to a couple of housekeeping items. One of the things we're still waiting on, is our last plan that was submitted to the planning board in October. Still has basins 1 and 3 in the inner riparian zone. They have to be moved. We've been very clear about that right from the beginning. Those are going to have to be moved from the inner riparian zone. There's not much more we can say about that. We've also asked repeatedly for plans at a 40 scale with color-coded demarcations for various resource areas. And if you'll recall, Paul, when we were in the field at one point trying to determine where we were in relation to what we were seeing in the field, 4 people could barely determine where inner riparian zone was, the buffer zone was, the 50-foot limited disturbance line, the 25-foot. So we've asked for this on repeated occasions, so we're asking for it again. And then the final thing is that we have received a letter from abutters, and I know that at our last meeting, a continuation was requested. That was on December 14th. And after we continued the hearing, I took the opportunity. There were a couple of abutters present, and I think they may be present currently. We took an opportunity to look at the letter and to provide information relative to the abutters' concerns. Now, we understand completely that without the applicant being present, no discussions or no decisions could be made relative to the project, but many of the abutters' concerns related to the technical ability of the commission to be able to conduct a review, the standards of review, where we stood in the process, and we addressed pretty much point by point their concerns. And
Okay. All right.
okay, he had a complaint.
Yeah.
In a follow-up email, I believe to the administrator, felt that there was some degree of comfort of where we stand on the process, and they were comfortable with the way the review is proceeding. A copy of that has been entered into the record, and Paul, if you want that, it can be provided.
Yeah, we definitely would want that, what the abutter said and what the commission, how the commission responded for
Okay.
sure.
The commission's response is recorded and is available. We responded in depth, and I think that we were all, I think that everyone was satisfied with where we stand. And again, there was only one question that we were unable to make or answer, and the abutters did ask if it would be possible, if the owner would agree to have them have a tour of the property so they can see firsthand what's being proposed, and with a copy of the layout. And of course, the commission said that that would have to be strictly up to the applicant or the applicant's representative to determine whether or not that would be a possibility, and we would defer to that decision.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mr. Petrosi couldn't be on tonight, but I expect that he would be, willing to take folks on a tour. We'll certainly forward that. So I guess I would ask for the contact information for these particular folks so that he could contact them directly. Yeah,
I think the administrator can provide you with a copy of that, and perhaps along with a copy of their letter. Is there anyone here from the abutters group that would just like to address where we stand at this moment with your concerns?
Yes, hi, Rich Johnson here, 460 Lake Street.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so we've taken your advice and got up to speed, watched the videos, read the minutes, and are comfortable with, very comfortable with the committee's efforts, and just look forward to continuing as observers at this point.
Paul, I think that's fair.
All right, and Mr. Johnson, I will relay your request to Mr. Petrosi. I'm not the owner. I don't have the ability to make that promise to you, but I will certainly relay it.
Understood. I appreciate that.
Okay, so what I want to do now, and this is the main focus of tonight's meeting, as far as the commission is concerned, is to review your alternatives analysis, Paul. And I know that we haven't received peer review comments on this, although our peer reviewers are present. I'm certainly welcome them to interject at any point, but as you well know, the peer review is one aspect of the overall commission review. The commission always has its own independent thoughts on the whole process. And with that being said, Paul, I know that this will take a little bit of time to go over your document. So what I'm going to propose is that we commence work on this and we have a hearing at 7:30. And if you're amenable, what we would do is we would hear the next hearing. When that's wrapped up, we would continue only to the point where we might be able to complete or substantially complete your alternatives analysis.
I will abide by your request, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent.
I was
Okay.
hoping for a short night, but whatever.
So, Paul, is there any chance that you could share your screen with your alternatives analysis? Do you have the ability to call that up?
I do. I have it here. I'm trying to find the share screen.
Take your time.
Are you seeing my screen here?
We are.
Okay, let me make this a little bigger, and
Yeah, thank you.
you don't need to see my file organization. Okay, so this is the document, December 27. Would you like me to just kind of run through it, or how do you want to proceed?
No, I think what I'd like to do is, I think we can all run through it together. And we have no comments on the introduction.
Okay.
Okay. So there are a couple of things that I'm gonna just mention as we look at the existing conditions. And there are things that may show up further on in the document that we'll talk about at length. And in the first sentence, we talk about portions of the subject property contain native soils and a largely native second growth forest cover. So what we're going to talk about further on is that second growth forest cover being some of the areas that you're considering degraded. So we'll get to that a little bit further on. Along in that same vein, in the next paragraph, where you say Ecotech has delineated riverfront areas on the property, which include the obvious unvegetated bare sand, as well as areas where early colonization has occurred. So we're going to get to that as well. This is something that maybe in the peer review, if
BSC.
the BS, thank you. If BSC has an opportunity to expand on that, they could. And at the end of that paragraph, you talk about the limits of the degraded riverfront area discussed below and indicated on the reference plans represent the degraded riverfront delineation as reviewed and confirmed with minor modifications by BSC and survey by GLM. The commission was present and an active participant in all of that. And we agreed only to the absence of topsoil, not to whether or not the area was degraded. And so we will expand on that again a couple pages on. Proposed limited project. So if we go to the quoting from 1053.3E, Relative to a limited project, the issuing authority shall consider the following factors: the magnitude of the alteration and the significance of the project site to the interests identified in Mass General Law, Chapter 130, Section 40, the availability of reasonable alternatives to the proposed activity. That's the whole function of the alternatives analysis. I'm sure everybody will agree. And, you know, the commission, I think, is proposing to make the case that we have an alternative that is better than the alternative that has been proposed. So if we go to page 3,
Mr. Chairman, if I may just interject here.
who's speaking, please?
Matt Burns.
Oh, okay, sorry, Matt.
Nope, sorry. I just wanted to draw to the attention of the commission that the beginning of that citation is actually fairly important. On page 2, where Ecotech has cited the issuing authority shall consider. The beginning of that caption or citation is actually that the issuing authority may issue an order of conditions permitting the following limited projects in determining whether to exercise its discretion to approve a limited project. And then we pick up where the citation begins. And that's important. It is a discretion of the commission. It is not a right of an applicant.
You're absolutely correct. And my little post-it note disappeared and I found it. You are absolutely correct. The issuing authority may, that means it's not a guarantee. And it also means that the commission shall evaluate all the alternatives in the determination of whether or not they issue a permit on the applicant's proposed. Thank you. Okay, so then we talk about with some specificity, the reasonable alternative means of access from a public way to an upland area of the same owner is unavailable. It qualifies as a limited access, a limited project. And again, I believe all of your alternatives provided legitimate alternatives, but the one that the commission is seeking further investigation or potential permitting on is alternative 4. Okay. Still on page 3. How are we doing for time?
Good, good.
Okay.
We got 4 minutes.
Okay, we're talking about the DEP file numbers, notification of the file number, DEP file number notification, and they talked about the standards for projects that involve redevelopment is improving existing conditions. The redevelopment project is relating to the riparian zone where there are degraded areas. And Paul, we're going to get to that very shortly. And then, of course, bordering vegetated wetland fill and replication provisions at 1054-4B require consideration of magnitude of the alteration, significance to the interests, the extent to which adverse impacts can be avoided, the extent to which impacts are minimized, and the extent to which mitigation measures contribute to the protection of the act. For the commission, we feel that it's the avoidance, which is the first test of all these types of projects. Now we're going to get to the fun and games of what the commission's comments are. And I'm wondering if this would be a good point to break, Paul, so that you can kind of review what we've done so far, because we're going to talk about the riverfront regulatory provisions. And and I know that I have not spoken with BSC on this. This is something that's strictly coming from the commission. They may have their own take on all of this. But I know we have another hearing, and rather than begin this in-depth review, it might be a good time to break and then come back in a half hour. Is that okay with you?
Your call, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, if that's the case, I will entertain a motion to continue the hearing until 8 o'clock this evening, and we will be able to continue with the discussion for the riverfront regulations and compliance thereto.
So
All
moved.
right.
I got Neil and seconds.
Second,
Mike,
second.
is there any discussion? Okay, I'll do this by roll call. There are a lot of folk here. Michael,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Neil,
Aye.
Noel,
Aye.
is Ariane present?
Yes.
Aye.
That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Paul, we'll see you shortly.
All right, I will stop sharing
Thank you.
and I will be back at 8 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Go have supper.
Mhm.
All righty, I'll have dessert.
Okay.
I wonder if you told him he could only have dessert, whether he would assume that means he's getting his just desserts. I don't know. Probably not.
Okay. I see the applicant's representative for our next continuation is present. And so we're 3 minutes ahead of schedule. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold public hearings, continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposal to construct a 700,000 square foot warehouse facility with associated site appurtenances on a 158 acre parcel off of Hartford Avenue, Bellingham, and identified as Assessor's Map parcels 30-73-1, 24-12, and 31-3. The project proposes temporary and permanent impacts to resource areas jurisdictional to the Wetlands Protection Act of 661 square feet of bordering vegetated wetland, 95 square feet of bank, 561 square feet of land under water bodies, and the 100-foot buffer zone with the proposed mitigation, and is located within the riverfront area to Spring Brook. The project also proposes impacts to resource areas jurisdictional to the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw regulations, including 28 linear feet of bank, 15,274 square feet of land subject to flooding, bordering or isolated, 651,879 square feet of buffer zone, 39,357 square feet of isolated vegetated wetlands, 82 square feet of land under water bodies, and 2,484 square feet of vernal pools with proposed mitigation. Andrea Kendall, LEC Environmental, Worcester, Mass. has submitted the filing on behalf of Jeff Curley, Bellingham Associates, Boylston Street, Chestnut Hill. The continuations will be held via the online Zoom option on Wednesday, January 11th at 7:30. Okay. I see Andrea and Brian are here. I think I
Is Andrew in it?
is Andrea here, Brian?
You just got me this evening. She had a few other meetings.
Yeah, I didn't think I saw her.
Okay, but I see Austin is here.
Yeah, Austin
I
and
certainly am.
Jeff Curley's here.
So
Hello,
what I
all.
propose to do, as we have done in the past, recap the site visit. This is our third site visit. Now, Jeff, Brian, jump in if I miss something or if I have misinterpreted something. There's a lot of stuff going on out there and it's easy to make a mistake. So we'll start with wetland I.
Hey Cliff, would it be helpful if I share my screen so there's a picture of
Absolutely.
yours?
Yeah.
You know what?
Okay.
Absolutely, because there are folk here who may not have seen this before.
All right, coming at you. Let me know when you can see it.
Okay.
So I think wetland, we started, Cliff, just for context, this is what you're referring to. We kind of walked all the way through here and
Yep.
made it to the far end of the site, right?
Yes, we did. And if we actually want to try to discuss and recap the way that we actually walked it, the first thing we did is we came upon isolated wetland view, which was an isolated depression. Oh, excellent. Look at that. You're reading my mind.
Yeah.
It's right there in the green area, I believe. No,
It is Austin, upper right.
yeah,
No,
by
right there.
M35, right around
Yeah.
M35. A little higher.
Yeah. It's
No, it's in the green. It's
In
okay.
that grading,
That's
yeah.
it. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So this is an area that had classic vernal pool characteristics, but I think Brian stated that he had not identified any egg masses or breeding evidence. You were there for 2 years, you think?
Yes, the past 2 years, it's had standing water. I think on the order of 6 inches plus minus, but no breeding activity, no fairy shrimp observed before, and it dries up relatively quickly as well.
Fair enough. I know the hydro period was a little bit short this year. The drought wasn't declared until May, but that's usually based on 3 previous months of low rainfall. And I think in the field we had discussed, there's a couple of vernal pools that we do want to revisit in the spring. This will be one of them. We'll probably find nothing there. But one of the things that came out of this discussion was that this is an area that's proposed for buffer zone enhancement. Is that correct? That's why it's all green?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so, that area is forested right now, and we're not going to allow credit for buffer zone enhancement in areas where you're cutting down the trees for grading. That just doesn't make sense to us. That's like double dipping. So, in other words, you get a chance to fill in an isolated wetland in the buffer zone and take credit for planting something after you do your grading. So, whether or not the grading is permitted is one thing, but you'll have to eliminate that from your calculations for buffer zone enhancement. I mean, does the commission?
So I can appreciate that point, and not this is not a counter argument, just more of a thought, and it's something that Matt from BSC and I were kind of just kicking around a little bit as we were walking out from the site on Saturday morning. One of the things as we're about to, I think we're getting close to the point, at least in my opinion, where we're kind of refamiliarizing ourselves with some of the resource areas and what's out there, and transitioning. I think at least what we've discussed is transitioning into some discussions about mitigation. So I think that comment is topical, right? One of the things I thought might be valuable, and I'd appreciate the commission's take on this too, would be having some kind of collaborative working session with your consultant, being Matt, and members of the commission, or some like yourself or Ann, to kind of work through what the team's thoughts were in terms of mitigation, this being a salient point. And hopefully that kind of working session, as we're talking about vernal pools, the mitigation that we're contemplating, and things of that nature, would kind of facilitate us when we're in the field and provide some additional context to some of those discussions that we're having. And I thought that was valuable. I think Matt thought there may be some value in that, but I wanted to get your take, obviously, and the commission's take on that too.
Okay, a couple things, you know, there are certain things that we feel that we can do outside of the public hearing process because we can provide substantial recaps like we're doing now. But for the commission to participate in something that is actually formatting a redesign or a design, normally what we do is we look at alternatives based on comments, and then we evaluate the alternatives. We don't want to be in a position where, you know, if we say, okay, fine, why don't we try this? And then that we have seen it work against us in the past where an applicant will say, but wait a minute, we did it that way. And now you're saying it's not good enough. In other words, it can lead to miscommunication, even though the intent is to properly communicate. But what I would suggest is perhaps there's lots of opportunity here for enhancement, lots of opportunity. And I'm sure that with Brian and Andrea, they will be able to come up with something that will satisfy the regulatory requirements for the local and for the WPA. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely does. And my purpose for suggesting the idea of a collaborative session wasn't to kind of get the answers to the test or anything like that, as much as it was, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. We've all acknowledged that. And to make sure that as we're starting to get into some of those design, is make sure that us, our team, your team, and obviously the team at BSC are aligned in approach just to make it efficient. It wasn't to circumvent any of the process, but more to kind of navigate it and try to make it efficient for you, us, and obviously the members of the public too, and then have their input on that throughout the process.
Well, what we can do is we can, as we review the alternatives at the public hearings, based on comments from BSC, we may be able to provide comment or suggestions during the public hearing process.
Sure, that's fair. That's what this is kind of for. Do you think the commission would be amenable to us if we're kind of working through some of the granular pieces of those designs, communicating directly with your consultant, obviously with you and the commission being in the loop, just to make sure that we're fully aligned there?
We've always avoided our applicants' representatives interacting directly with our peer reviewers because there's an appearance that the person that's working as a peer reviewer for the commission could potentially be compromised by making suggestions that the commission may or may not approve. I know what you're getting at. You're looking for expediency and competency. And I think that the commission has already demonstrated that it's willing to extend itself to assist in the moving forward of the project. And I think that you can attest to the competency of the commission.
No doubt, and respectfully, my implication wasn't to suggest that anything to the contrary. It was more just to kind of wrestle this thing down. It's a little bit of a beast, and I'm just trying to put a little bit of further structure on it. It wasn't a comment on the commission involvement. I frankly, I love working with you.
But we're going back and to look at this area, and I think you told us that you understand completely what we're saying.
Sure.
We don't want you to cut down all of the trees, damage all the vegetation, do a grading project, and then plant something else and claim it as, you know, buffer zone restoration. There are opportunities on site, and I'm sure that, you know, Brian and Andrea will be able to identify some areas. I know you already have done some. You can, even if you come up with a number of areas. And say, okay, we need X number of square feet. We have, in addition to what you've already proposed, this and this and this, and we'll work with you on that.
Sure, absolutely. And what we'll do in the context of that, and I'm sure this will be a comment that maybe applies in some other locations as well. We'll obviously go back and huddle with Brian and Andrea, work up what we might think meets the spirit and intent of what you're trying to achieve, and then we'll obviously reconvene the commission as well, and part of further discussions.
Okay, perfect. So continuing our sidewalk, we did the eye to the east and to the west, the eye wetland area. It borders the core property, which is to the south. It was accurate. We changed nothing. We intersected with the K series, which we had previously, which is to the bottom of the screen. Yeah, that's it. We intersected to that area. There was a little confusion relative to the location of the flags in the field. Primarily my fault. I couldn't orient myself. But once we got the plans, we looked at the flags, we understood everything was as it should be. And then we exited into the general cul-de-sac area. Yeah, and all of that area to the right of the cul-de-sac and the access road there, we did review all of those flags, and it was right around the cul-de-sac that we climbed over that ridge, and we entered an area. It was in the actual cul-de-sac and extending a little beyond. It was not flagged as a resource area, but we noted standing water. There was not a lot of vegetation. It was mixed herbaceous vegetation. There were sedges and possibly some hydrophilic grasses, but it's winter and it was really difficult to tell. But we did notice redox at or just below the surface. And the commission suggested that we revisit that area and find out what the disposition is, whether that water drains, whether it's there, you know, as a result of previous activity or packing due to ATV traffic. But we're going to reevaluate that in the spring, because we'll be out there multiple times. So no determination was made on that. Then we went to wetland Q, which is immediately to the west of the infiltration unit in your parking area. That's it. That is a vernal pool. Still suffering from that crazy cold. Brian had identified breeding species. It had previously been identified as an active vernal pool area. And we agreed that the extent of the area is accurate. However, in the field, looking at the plan, and we're bringing it up now, you have a retaining wall, and it is at the 25-foot no disturb zone. That has to be outside the 50-foot. It's a 50-foot no disturb zone to an active vernal pool. So that will have to be, the width will have to be shortened, an adjustment will have to be made there. And we're giving you a heads up now.
Sure, no, that's why we're having these meetings. We can refine that.
Wetlands S and R, I'm a little unclear. They're two little resource areas. I don't know that we made the determination as to the accuracy there. I'll be honest, I don't recall. Does Brian have a recollection? I think Andrea was suggesting that we look at it, but it had been a couple hours and we were all looking to head back.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, those areas were not staked out in the field, so we didn't verify them.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll evaluate those. I mean, because I see them on the plan, we'll stake them out and we'll evaluate those at the same time that we look at the cul-de-sac area. Then the next area I want to talk about is Springbrook. Now, crossing at Spring Brook, the previous ORAD had determined there was a very short period in all the years we were out there where there was no flow in Spring Brook to the southwest of the proposed crossing. There was always standing water, and there were pools, but there was no flow. However, we were out there on the 3rd of November, and the drought was officially declared over in Norfolk County on the 13th, and there was substantial flow. So there's a couple of ways we can handle this, Austin. And this is kind of like the working sessions that you're talking about. There are a couple of ways we can handle it. The first way is that you design for a perennial stream crossing. Now, you know, the constraints being the 10% of the riverfront area being altered. There's a substantial riparian zone there. You don't, I believe, cross that threshold. It would probably be something would be designable. The alternative is that, you know, we wait to a later period of low flow, historic low flow, July, August, and then we go out there and we evaluate whether or not we have clearly defined bank and channel. Now, at this point, I'm going to defer to BSC and Matt to see if he thinks that that's a reasonable way to proceed. I'm putting him on the spot. I'm sorry, but this is kind of like a working session so we can give the applicant some guidance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate it. No, so looking at the, you know, the regulatory definition for perennial is that it's shown as perennial on the USGS topographic. Number one, this is not. So a river stream shown as intermittent on the USGS that has a watershed size greater than or equal to 1 square mile is correct. I ran stream stats on this stream when we first got this project, and the drainage area is 0.34 square miles. So it doesn't meet that criteria. A stream shown as intermittent or not shown on the USGS that has to have a watershed size of at least 0.5 square miles with a predicted 99% flow duration. So it just at the using a regulatory standard, it just doesn't cross up into perennial conditions by my reading.
Okay. So the fact that we saw it flowing in a period of drought doesn't overcome those standards, is that?
There's not a mechanism for doing that, for looking at a stream in that way.
Okay, so Austin, you still there?
I'm still here. I like this
Okay.
working session so far.
Well, so this is good because our peer review consultant is saying that we would be out on a limb on this. And I'm not sure what the commission feels, but if there are 3 regulatory tests and we fail to meet them, then we'll let that go and we'll say that it is intermittent. Is the commission in agreement with that?
I think we should just keep Matt on mute for a while. No, I'm in agreement on that. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Okay.
It's just.
Me too.
Okay.
It's the truth.
So, you know, in spite of what people may think about us, our review is based on science and engineering. And so we will call that intermittent.
We found when we go against Matt, we usually get burned.
Oh,
Oh, that's a good one. So,
Mike.
Mike, I told you I wanted more jokes out of you on Saturday. I'm so happy that you listened to it. That was a good one.
so, all right, Austin, moving ahead, and we're doing really well. We're almost to the end of the commission's observations here. Basin 1, if you look at Basin 1, you have located the outer riparian zone.
Mhm.
Yep.
I did not see the inner riparian zone on that.
We have the outer one right here, the 200 foot right here, and then the 100 foot.
That's the wetland buffer,
Yep. So we have the 200 foot right here.
right?
You're saying we want the inner one on here too?
Absolutely, because we want to
Yeah,
make
sure, of
sure.
course. That may have just been an unintentional oversight, but we can show that.
That's what I figured, and that's important because we need to make sure that the basin is out of the inner riparian zone.
Yep.
Because the riparian area starts. Can you highlight that for us on your on the plan?
So the outer is this kind of halo right here, blue halo.
Right, but where did the stream be considered to be perennial? At what
I'd have
point?
to-
We saw it in the field.
Yeah, it's kind of, there's like a stretch in here. I'd have to,
Yeah.
it's along
Okay.
this stretch. in this
I just
arch.
wanted to make sure that it was in the area around the basin.
That's it.
It is, correct, yes.
Okay. So that's just a little something that you can work on. Now in the spring or moving forward, we're gonna want to evaluate potential vernal pools and the presumed vernal pools. X and Y. And we want to make sure that there is no breeding habitat or breeding activity. And one of the things that we're going to ask for now from LEC, because we can't have them without homework as well. What we would like is examples of areas where you have successfully replicated vernal pools, you know, the areas, the species, the methodology, and the monitoring reports. So Brian, at some point, if you could provide that to us and to the peer reviewer, that would give us a degree of comfort, because you're proposing a lot of replication of vernal pools, and we've never dealt with this before.
Yeah, we can certainly provide a little bit more information on that front.
Perfect. Okay. Does anyone from the commission have questions or comments about where we are and what we're doing?
Mr. Chair, at some point in time, this may not be the right time. I'd like to make sure that the entrance road crossing over the tributary to the Charles, which I think has been identified as such, at the foot of the slope there, that area is addressed as to the means for protecting that stream.
So what you're looking at is the details on the catch basins and the channeling of the flow of the water to assure that none of the stormwater directly enters the stream. Is that what you're after?
Well, that's part of it. The other parts, I remember reading some point in time in some of the documentation that and I think this may be part of the planning board review process, was speaking to the phosphorus loading, that this area is subject to regulations with that, and that they cautioned that be addressed. So dealing with how to mitigate any phosphorus loading from the site that might be created. I'm also concerned about salt, and I know oils are treated in the detention water treatment structures, proprietary structures, usually in-ground structures that are of various brands and types. However, I've never heard anybody address how salt, before that water is released into the subsurface ground level or out into a detention basin where it's infiltrated and potentially accessing in that particular area the tributary to the Charles, how salt, dissolved salts would be dealt with. Not suspended solid, if it's liquid salt water from road treatments there that access road, and it's collected at the bottom of the slope there, I don't think they're going to be pumping it anywhere to treat it in some other way. I'd like to know how that's going to address, because you don't want to increase the salinity to the wetlands area and the river tributary.
So I'm going to ask Brian, I know that frequently we specify use of calcium chloride as opposed to sodium chloride. Is there a difference really to resource areas?
You're asking me or Austin?
Yeah. Well, it's a working session. Yeah. You can investigate.
Cliff, I'm happy to answer that without
Oh, there
getting
we go.
Okay.
too engineering nerdy on you. I mean, so Mike touched on a number of good points. One, just going through on the phosphorus loading, our initial application had information relative to how we intend to handle that. The peer review that the town had done was very thorough, very comprehensive. They asked for a little bit more information on that. So we're in the process of providing those calculations that'll show kind of an expanded review of what we're calculating for phosphorus removal and how that complies with the expectations for the Charles River watershed basin.
Also, the administrator commented that might have been a DPW comment.
It was a DPW comment. I think BSC also had some stuff in their peer review that we got from the planning board related to the stormwater. So I think there was some synergy there.
So Mike,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Cliff.
no, go ahead.
Mike, you'd also mentioned, how protecting the stream. I think what Brian and I and the team are going to do is, as we improve that crossing, there's going to be a very specific set of information as to how that intends to be constructed to protect it both during construction period and then post-construction period as it's stabilized. So we'll get that information for you. There are, as you noted, a fairly robust stormwater management system here that is designed to remove the total, suspended solids. It has mechanisms upstream that are intended to kind of trap oils, quote unquote, or floatables really, that would otherwise be able to get in the system. One of the best ways you can prevent that from being transported to a downstream receiving body is to remove suspended solids, because they're frequently the vehicle for that. But also we have mechanisms in place that trap the floatables, such as oils, grease, etc., that are structures designed expressly for that purpose. And then in terms of the salt, Cliff had alluded to it. There are things that are alternative chemicals that are a bit more environmentally friendly. There are things like Green Pro Snow certified that are intended to be an alternative de-icing element that can be employed. I've seen that used in particularly sensitive areas or where a portion of the site may be closer to a resource area than outside of a buffer where you might do something different, handle it differently. But it's something that myself and Jeff and Brian and the team can explore and get some additional information on too.
Yeah, I'd be particularly interested in, I'm familiar with some of them, but you guys may know of others, materials that are less harmful. Less is a relative term, and especially dealing with a tributary to the Charles where you might get, I don't know, the DEP would get involved, or the Charles Rivershed Protective Action Group, that's that volunteer group. Again, more than just a little, not that any is little, but not less important wetlands area, but something that's feeding off, and once whatever gets into it, you're not collecting it after the fact. It's not sitting still water, and so the treatment of the chemicals and what the mitigation or minimization is good. But also, are you going to be, you mentioned the structure of the roadway itself. I'd be particularly interested in seeing what physically is going to be done to prevent, as the road will have to be, no matter how much you gradualize the incline, a road like that with all the cars and trucks going up and down, it's going to have to be heavily treated during winter time to avoid icing and so on. How you're going to minimize the overshot of treatment of salt. Basically anything that's 3 or 4 feet off the ground, I mean, not a wall that's less than 3 or 4 feet off the ground isn't gonna stop enough of the salt from going off both sides of that into the wetlands and the tributary, I think, to be an issue, but I'm not into designing that. I figured you guys are gonna address that too, correct?
We can get you some information on that, and it might be through the use of alternative de-icing agents too, which are, environmentally or considered environmentally friendly. Plus, I think Jeff volunteered to be out there during any snow removal operation and catch anything that comes off either side of that crosswalk. So, yeah.
Good. I heard you kind of hands.
Good man, Jeff.
I'll never let anything pass. Cliff.
That's the way to lend a hand. Thanks, Brian.
Both of them.
Okay, are there any other questions from the commission? Okay, now I know Austin's gonna want us to try to get out there again to finish some of this evaluation. And before I commit to anything, we have numerous requests for certificate of compliance and additional filings that we're gonna have to work on. So it's hard for us right now to earmark time until we can put together a whole schedule.
Hey, Cliff, can I ask a question out of my curiosity? Just, if we're considering another site visit, 'cause I know we're doing that, right?
I missed that.
So I know we're considering another site visit. There's gonna be a couple other site visits we're gonna do.
Yes,
Because right now we're discussing this in the public forum. Should we set a date so the public is aware of when that sidewalk is going to occur, and if it has to be continued for something, we can post it be continued, or is it something we can decide later? Customarily, we've been in a pretty good cadence where we've been at these meetings saying, great, let's get out on the site on X date at X time, and we've done that kind of in this form. I'm asking because I don't know what the proper procedure would be there.
well, I think what we'll do, we've been out 3 times, we made progress. We have a queue now of sites we have to go to, and I know we have limited availability in the winter. In fact, the point that we're going out at all in the winter is impressive, because most winters, it's done between December and the end of February. How about if we do this? We develop a list, find out what commissioners' availability are, and even if we can't get a lot of the commissioners to every one of these things, if we can get some commissioners to spread out and do some of the visits and others to do others, then we can keep all of these projects going. But we'll have to advise you, Austin. Is that okay?
It's fine with me. I was asking the question just simply because I want to get some clarity on the process, but whatever is amenable to the commission. I think, as you alluded to, Cliff, I think for us as a team, it's important that we maintain the rhythm that was established, because we've made a lot of progress. Much thanks to the commission engaging us, and being so collaborative. I just want to make sure that we keep that rhythm going to the extent that it makes sense to do it.
No, we don't want to lose the momentum. I understand completely. But what we can always do, we can always work on getting into some of the engineering. Which we haven't done yet.
So kind of a peek behind the curtain, what we're doing right now, we're actively addressing the comments that BSC has provided as part of their technical peer review.
Good.
And we're going to be circling those back to BSC and get that process kind of behind us, so to speak, right? Not that it's been onerous, but let's, that'll be one more thing we can say, hey, we're all in alignment from a technical perspective, and we can really kind of refocus on some of the other items that are in front of us as well.
And
we'll be
that
getting those
kind of
plans
work
to commission, obviously.
that kind of work doesn't necessitate field work, so we can certainly participate in that.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to perhaps revisit the idea of the working session again. I think we recognize that the commission is the final word on the decision here, but your point about the volume of information, the time of year, the ability to make use of some time in between these 30-minute slots we're getting once or twice a month, where perhaps we can engage with the administrator and with Matt. You brought up vernal pool as a replication of vernal pool as an example. a few minutes with Matt on what he's seen for best practices in that arena. Just, we're not looking, as Austin alluded to, not looking for the answers to the test, but want to be sure we're headed in the right direction so that we can make guesses that are closer to the ballpark, if you will, so that we can minimize and make more expedient the review process, if that's possible. Again, we recognize the commission and the commission's input will be the final word on all this stuff, but I wanted to just ask again if that was something you'd be open to, or the commission would be open to.
Okay, goodness gracious, we certainly hope that there's no guesswork involved here, and I'm sure that Brian will be able to steer us in the right direction on that. Matt, of course, wrote the book on vernal pools. We're very pleased to have him in our corner, but you know, LEC is a highly reputable and experienced environmental firm, and I think that what we'll do is, you know, as he submits his data, the commission and Matt will look at it, and he's already come up with ideas. We've had some preliminary discussions in the field, and especially in that one area along 495, where the commission had concerns about, you know, altering upland habitat immediately proximate to a vernal pool in order to expand the vernal pool. You know, these are the kinds of things that we asked the LEC to take a peek at, and I'm sure that they're going to be working on that. We just want to minimize the interaction between peer review and consultant for the applicant to make sure that the process is independent and transparent. That's all. It's just our policy.
Thank you.
So when are you on with the planning board?
February 9th.
February 9th. And you expect to have some of the engineering done by then?
We do.
Okay, so that's
That's the
only
expectation.
I'm sorry, you have the engineering done. The
Responses to their review comments,
you.
yes.
Right. Okay, so what we're looking at only a couple of Saturdays. We'll have to get back to you on the potential for site visits, but we can probably continue you to evening of February 8th. That will give us time to look at the engineering as well. In spite of the fact that we're not really engineers, we have experience enough to sometimes have viable input. And we'd like to have an opportunity to do that. If we can't get out in the field, we'll concentrate on the engineering and we'll look at the information that Brian's going to submit. Yeah, I lost my schedule.
Ask a question about the nature of the upcoming on-sites. So based on the notes and discussion this evening, we're going to take a look at the R and S wetlands that weren't staked out in the field.
Yes.
We're going to take another look at the end of the cul-de-sac in that disturbed area.
Right.
Beyond that, I think we had previously talked about staking out the wetland mitigation areas and then getting into that review. And Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, but have those areas all been staked out at this point?
Austin?
Yes, we have. So any of those areas have been established in the field now. It was just getting RNS, and I think as part of our previous site walks and what we had discussed previously in this forum, there were some adjustments to some of the flags that I know Brian, you and Andrea have completed, working with surveyors out there to collect those field modifications as well.
So there's enough for us to conduct another site visit, review of, as Brian suggested, those three remaining resource areas, and we could commence with some of the review of the buffer zone enhancement areas, looking to with specificity as to their viability and how valuable they are in performing those functions. So there's still work we could do if weather and time allow. Yeah. All right. I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing to the evening of February 8th at 7:30.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion? I'll do a roll call on this one. Ariane?
she's
Okay.
muted.
Sorry, the
Okay,
microphone is
thank
off
you.
screen.
Neil,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Noel,
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Okay, that's a unanimous vote. The administrator will be in touch with you. We'll look forward to getting some of your information, Brian. Austin, thank you so much.
Thank you both. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. And thanks for spending on a Saturday with me a couple days
Thanks
ago.
all. Glad you're feeling better, Cliff.
Yeah, well, for now.
It sounds like Ann might have become a victim now. Take care, guys.
Have a good night, everybody.
Take care. Okay, oh, there he is. There's Paul. All right. What I would like to do is continue the hearing for Prospect Hill Estates and dispense with the reading of the advertisement. It's a hearing that was continued at 7:30 this evening. And those with an interest are still present. So if Paul would be so kind as to share his screen again.
Oh, sure. Got it.
And once again, Matt, don't hesitate. If there's something that you think is out of line or something that you can add to, I know that you're going to prepare your peer review. So we left off with the riverfront area regulatory provisions. And we're going to get to the key discussion point here. Right down where it says 5, redevelopment within previously developed riverfront areas, restoration and mitigation, notwithstanding the provisions of 310 CMR 1058-4C and D, the issuing authority may allow work to redevelop a previously developed riverfront area, provided the proposed work improves existing conditions. Redevelopment means replacement, rehabilitation, or expansion of existing structures, improvement of existing roads, or reuse of degraded or previously developed areas. There's a whole bunch of things going on here that the commission would like to clarify our position on. And I want to start with the fact that we're requiring a wildlife habitat evaluation. And it appears that there's some discussion and a possible difference of opinion relative to what constitutes degraded and not degraded riverfront area. The commission fully understands that the regulations allow for the absence of topsoil in certain conditions to be an indicator of a degraded condition. What the commission is going to ask for as part of our habitat evaluation is that the riparian zone at the crossing be divided into the 4 quadrants. And I know, Paul, you'll know what I mean when I said the 4 quadrants. Okay, in each one of those quadrants, we're going to require a tree inventory with the number and type of the trees and caliper size. Because the commission is contending that the applicant cannot improve the existing conditions because the existing conditions are forested, and that the wildlife habitat assessment will show that there are species that are utilizing that area for travel, for feeding, and potentially for nesting. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you a question?
sure.
You're talking about having us do this quantification, but you also said in the same sentence that you've concluded that that the area provides habitat and that it can't be improved. So I guess I'm questioning, frankly, I mean, we all know what it looks like. And I'm questioning whether there's really value in quantifying that, since we all know what it looks like.
Well, there could be in the event that the applicant would choose to appeal based on the fact that he is contesting the degraded designation, for the commission to be able to say, here's a wildlife habitat analysis with an evaluation of the existing conditions, irrespective of soil conditions. I think it's important, but it's also important, I think, for everyone involved in this whole situation to understand that if we look at alternative 4, this all goes away. There are no impacts to the riparian zone.
Well, I guess that's the other elephant in the room is alternative 4, because notwithstanding quantifying the tree count and whatnot, if the commission is basically going to, I hate to use the term, but I can't think of a better one, but dig your heels in on alternative 4, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, I just can't find another way to express it. Then again, quantifying and getting into the weeds on the preferred alternative doesn't seem to add value.
Well, it might add value to the commission's determination as to whether or not alternative 4 was indeed a legally preferable alternative. In other words, we're giving the applicant every opportunity to demonstrate that his preferred alternative is indeed an alternative that closer adheres to the performance standards of the regulations. We're giving you that opportunity. We don't want to say, no, we're not going to accept it. We want you to have every opportunity to explore it, to come to whatever determination if the applicant wants to dig his heels in on your preferred alternative.
I'm just making a note here.
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question on that same section, the section just above number 5, redevelopment within previously, no practical and substantially equivalent economic alternatives. Has there been a definition, quantitative, like numerical definition for substantially equivalent economic alternative? In other words, is a 10% loss in income potential revenue for the developer considered substantial, but 11% is not? If they can demonstrate that they won't make as much money. I don't understand what that term really means. I understand it in a general sense, but in a quantitative sense, measurable sense.
I think it's determined case by case, but I'll let Paul speak to that.
Yeah, it's unfortunately there is no bright line cutoff. There is no 10% number or something like that. And I agree with Mr. Matthews that, you know, it's a case by case, you know, kind of reasonableness standard, and obviously people can disagree about what's reasonable.
Who makes that determination on a case by case basis? A court, if you take it to court? Otherwise, it's just, well, if you think it's reasonable and we don't, then we're at odds about it, or?
Well, if it came to it, you know, it would be the issuing authority, and the issuing authority is the commission, and then DEP, and then the adjudicatory hearing.
Right.
So,
so we have the ability to say, we think it's reasonable. I'm going to throw out a hypothetical. 10% of the houses can't be built if you do option 4. We could say, hypothetically, that to us is economically reasonable because there's so much less of a disruption in our view to the high quality, most sensitive areas of the site environmentally. And the intent of the regulatory acts is to protect those as a priority over economic. And in our view, yeah, there's a trade-off. We know you're not going to not be able to do anything, but something. So you're saying that we have the first stab at that, then DEP, and then, as you said, the courts potentially.
I would agree. You right now the ball right now you hold that card, and that is your decision as the commission. I guess I would just add to what you said is that you know, in terms of economics, you know, it's not just the number of lots. That's obviously that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is the cost required to be able to build X number of lots.
Sure.
So obviously, you know, much longer road is much more expensive. You know, so there's you know, that's the second half of the balance sheet.
Understood. Okay.
Sure, and then of course, you know, there are savings with replication, buffer zone enhancement, and this actual stream crossing. And I'm looking, and I don't have it. I've had it in front of me for so long, and now I don't have it. But it speaks to the fact that economic reasons alone are insufficient for determining whether or not an alternative is viable.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, that is at 1058 4C1 A. Pardon me, it says higher or lower cost taken alone will not determine whether an alternative is practicable. An alternative for proposed work in the riverfront area must be a practicable and substantially equivalent economic alternative, i.e. defining substantially equivalent economic alternative by saying will achieve the proposed use and project purpose from an economic perspective. So, you know, I think what that gets at is a 9-lot subdivision with lower environmental impact achieves the project purposes and proposed use in the same way that a 15. So, and Mike, if you want to kind of take a look at the extensive discussion of what practicable means, although it's not crystal clear by any stretch of the imagination, that 1058 4C1 is the regulatory definition.
So, you know, I think we're all in agreement about that. I didn't have the section. Thank you, Matt. But now my question for Paul. So what difference does it make to the applicant whether or not these areas are degraded or not? Now, I know that you've repeatedly requested that the stormwater bases be removed from the inner riparian zone, which they are not. They are still in the inner riparian zone, and you know that that's not acceptable, whether it's degraded or not, because it's not a redevelopment project. So why are we constantly fighting over whether it's degraded or not?
Well, I have to disagree with your premise, Mr. Chairman, because our position is that it is a redevelopment project. because it is degraded. So I think it's incumbent on the discussion that we deal with the point that you noted and said we deal with later, which is the question of is there degraded area? Is degraded riverfront in particular?
And so you think that gives you the right to put stormwater structures in the inner riparian zone?
The stormwater structures can always go in the inner riparian if there's not a reasonable alternative.
And there we have it. There, you have a blank slate, Paul. You have reasonable alternatives. And I've been saying this since I went out and looked at the soil tests. You have reasonable alternatives. Move them out of the inner riparian zone. I mean, that's a basic test.
Well, there are limitations to that. Rob Truex, I should have mentioned, is on the call, is on the meeting tonight. Rob's the engineer, you'll recall. But I think, as I said, there seems to be a core disagreement about the extent of degraded. And I intentionally kind of I hope for ease of analysis, identified the areas and flagged the areas, totally lacking, anything but bare sand, and then went out with BSC and Ethan and reviewed the other areas. So I think, the other thing that I think that we're doing, and it's always a problem in these situations, is I think we're lumping the 1058.4 and 1058.5 provisions, when the regulations, I believe, are when you have redevelopment, the project is viewed as a redevelopment project.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, make an observation on that. I'm not sure that that it's, we're parsing this because there is non-degraded riverfront area mixed in with degraded by your definition. And so, the regs do allow us to parse those impacts.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Matt? I couldn't hear.
The regulations allow us to parse the impacts because we have a mixture of both degraded by your claim and non-degraded riverfront area. So so essentially what you're suggesting is if there's any degraded riverfront on an entire site, then the entire thing gets considered as redevelopment? I don't think so.
We disagree there.
Okay. I mean, you can take that, you can take that exercise and say that you have, let's say you have a 5-acre area of riverfront area on a site, and there's a 1/4 acre paved lot. Does all the work within that 5 acres of riverfront area get considered redevelopment?
I will tell you that I was initially of the same opinion, have subsequently been convinced otherwise by Attorney Matt Watsky, who was, formerly Deputy General Counsel at DEP, was involved in writing these regs, and he among others convinced me otherwise. I will admit that region to region DEP is inconsistent in this, which is a problem for all of us. But yes, that is my view. That is my opinion.
It hasn't been adjudicated, so at the end of the day, you know, it's commission needs to.
We,
make that.
I agree on that one. It would be great if it were.
So 1058 at 5, the issuing authority may allow work to redevelop a previously developed riverfront area, provided the proposed work improves existing conditions. How are you going to improve an existing forested area?
Well, the forested area, is one thing. There are certainly areas out there that are not forested, that are open, some bare soil. There's the old railroad grade. There's a lot of opportunity there for renaturalization. I frankly, you know, had talked to Mr. Petrosi about this. He's willing to do that. I probably should have developed something further, but honestly was a little bit reluctant to do that, given the whole issue about you know, the crossing and alternative 4, because if the decision's going to be made based upon kind of yay or nay crossing versus alternative 4, then you know, then it's kind of a moot point.
Well, so you're saying you don't have to do a habitat analysis to support your preferred alternative? We're saying
Well, I'd have to, I mean, there's the point that Matt and the commission has made about improving existing conditions is very clearly in the regs. And the habitat is an interest of the act. So you know, I don't want to comment specifically on the habitat assessment per se. I haven't thought about it. I certainly haven't thought about it in the terms that you described about quadrants and tallying trees and all that. It's a consideration. It's an interest.
Okay, so earlier you had mentioned when I first brought up, you know, the identification in the quadrant, the complete evaluation of the forested area. You said, look, we all know what it is. We all know what's there. So in your professional opinion, what is it and what is there? Your professional opinion.
What is there? There's in those within the wooded, well, there's varying age stands of woody vegetation developed on previously mined areas dominated by white pines of you know, varying age. You know, there's some areas where there's just little saplings and other areas up to, I'm going to say 6-inch or so.
How about 30-inch? I measured a couple. Some of those are big trees, Paul.
30-inch within our absence of topsoil areas?
Yes, sir.
I don't recall that, but I have a hard time believing that the 30-inch pine would have grown since the cessation of mining, but
well, maybe it was left over from the mining. What I'm saying is that some of those trees there are easily 50 years old. Would you concur?
Decades. I don't know about 50, but several decades anyway.
Okay, and so again, you're saying that improvement will be cutting down the stands of pine trees and putting in a detention basin. That's going to be an improvement.
No, there's other components to it. As I said, that would be you know, have to be areas of you know, substantial renaturalization of other areas that are not within the footprint of the proposed road.
Well, Matt, BSC has not commented on this. the fact that you're resisting moving stormwater structures from the inner riparian zone, I find amazing.
I'm not resisting anything, Mr. Chairman.
Well, let me just say this. The crossing is your preferred alternative.
Mhm.
And your latest plans from October show 2 basins within the inner riparian zone. So we have asked repeatedly that those structures be removed from the inner riparian zone. So to me, that constitutes resistance.
Well, again, we were hoping to get some resolution on the issue of whether a crossing at all is something under consideration by the commission, and you know, that's you know, it's an iterative process, and that's we're trying to get some understanding on that. That's
so we can actually look at the numbers that you provided. On page 6. So the preferred alternative is 1,655 feet of roadway, 10 lots, 580 square feet of BVW fill, and alterations of 44,682 square feet of riparian zone. And buffer zone alterations of 16,180 square feet. Alternative 4, 450 square feet of BVW fill. Where is that located, Paul? Is that at the access off of Prospect Street? I'm not sure where that is.
yes, that's essentially on the way in, kind of running parallel to the town property there.
Okay, so it's about roughly half the amount of BVW fill, and no other alterations, but a higher amount of buffer zone fill, and including 10,000 square feet roughly of 0 to 25, and 13,000 square feet of 25 to 50. So if we go to page 8 of 10, the preferred alternative is going to replace an undersized existing culvert with a large box culvert compliant with stream crossings. That's not going to be necessary if another alternative is used. You know, we were out there with BSC, you were there. I think it was a consensus that it didn't present any kind of immediate threat. That would not be required to be changed if the project didn't exist. So I don't know that that holds a lot of weight in your argument, but
Well, the stream, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I mean, the stream crossing, you know, the state is pushing for, you know, elimination of, you know, these restrictive stream crossings, which clearly is the situation under that exists, and to bring it up to, you know, bring it up to much more wildlife friendly crossing.
well,
So
I'm
I
sure
think
that-
I think that's a clear ecological enhancement.
if the project wasn't being proposed, I don't think that would be a necessary enhancement.
Well, it wouldn't be necessary, but I mean, there wouldn't be anybody to pay for it, but it would certainly be an enhancement. Whether there was a project or not, opening up that crossing, in my view, would be an ecological enhancement.
Well, it would certainly lower the water level. Which
Well, it would be at the same, it's proposed that then would be, I would assume under any scenario, proposed at the same invert. It would just, you wouldn't have the clogging situation.
wider open body, open bottom, I understand. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
if I may, I'm I have a question about I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but about the definition of redevelopment. Is an area that has been altered somehow, is that is that considered it to be developed? The fact that it was altered at some point?
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
well,
Mr. Stanley, I just put up on the screen, that's from the wetland regs. That's the definition of redevelopment under the riverfront regs. So there's basically part of what may be part of your confusion is that the regs use the term previously developed, and then a subset of previously developed is degraded. So degraded is better defined. It's not a perfect definition, but it's better defined. Previously developed is not well defined. So in my view, for example, a lawn area is previously developed, but not itself degraded. A driveway, paved driveway, is a degraded, previously developed area. Does that answer your question?
I disagree with you about lawns, but other than that, yes, I thank you.
and so
I think lawns are degrading in a wetland, but
Well,
personal observation there.
As a practical matter, I would agree, but definitionally,
correct. Okay, I was just
not.
Because this, in being out on the site, it wasn't. I was thinking developed was more from, again, impervious surface structures. We've taken, we've been permitted in removing, mill buildings, dams, things that have, actually developed that buffer zone for commercial type purposes. And the nature of the, if any area has been altered, it now if it's altered in any way, even a small amount, it qualifies as this to be redeveloped. I think that needs to be better defined personally.
yeah, redevelopment means replacement, rehabilitation, or expansion of existing structures, improvement of existing roads, or reuse of degraded or previously developed areas. So they talk about impervious surfaces from existing structures or pavement, absence of topsoil. That's the only place where it shows up. Junkyards or abandoned dumping grounds. So at a minimum, proposed work shall result in an improvement over existing conditions with the capacity of the riverfront area to protect the interests of the act. And, putting a stormwater structure in the inner riparian zone and then providing enhancement in other areas is not working to improve areas in the inner riparian zone.
Well, I would agree that the road the stormwater stormwater basin do not represent improvements. But as I said, and I fault myself for not developing this further, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for renaturalization of areas outside of those proposed footprints, which you know, which would represent an enhancement. Now, obviously, there's a balance.
Right, but that's not the specificity that I'm reading here. It's to improve the existing conditions in the degraded area, which means you have to improve, not put in a stormwater management structure and then do replication, restoration, enhancements somewhere else. It means in that area. Now, we have been on this repeatedly to remove, you got 2 basins in the inner riparian zone. I think
I can speak on that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Rob Schwax, GLM.
Sure.
So it's not that we're in a disagreement to move the basins. We've just been at such an impasse over the degraded area and whether this is even a viable option to put the road in, that Mr. Petrosi has asked me not to spend any more time redoing the drainage system and recalculating and moving things until we get through these other issues. If we can't come to terms on whether this is degraded, if you don't think it's degraded, then we're at an impasse. And moving the basin is a moot point at this time. And if you're in an agreement that you're not going to approve this project because you feel there's another means of accessing this site that's less detrimental to this crossing, then we're at an impasse. Because our position, and Mr. Petrosi's and Paul's, is that this is the preferred alternative. We don't feel alternative 4 is a viable alternative from an economic standpoint. Number one, it just doesn't work for us. If the road's so long and the cost to build it is, you know, you're talking $1,000 a foot to build a road today. You know, and the numbers don't work to sell 9 house lots. It just doesn't work. It's not feasible to build it. And that makes a difference. So if we're at that impasse, we've already made revisions to the drainage based on your comments that were actually, the comments weren't even correct. And when we made changes that was substantial, and a lot of calculations and a lot of time went into that. We raised all the basins to be 4 feet above groundwater when that wasn't even necessary based on the lot sizes. So at that point, he said, we're not making these changes until we get through these other obstacles. To move the basins at this point doesn't make sense if we're not building this road. If you're not comfortable with this crossing, everything else is a moot point. We're going to move all these basins. We're going to do all this work. You're going to deny the project based on saying it's not riverfront, it's not degraded. We have a better alternative. So what is the sense in making all these little changes if we're at an impasse over the degraded area and the alternatives to this site?
So
that's
Can I interject and say that even if the area was considered degraded, I don't think that the work you proposed would comply with the remaining regulations that are required for redevelopment of this degraded area. So it's kind of a moot point.
Yeah, I want to speak to the separation of groundwater. When I was first out there and we were reviewing the soils, I mentioned the fact that it was in a water resource district and needed 4 feet of separation to groundwater. But Lou, correctly, at one of our very, very early hearings, presented the information saying they're 2-acre lots. We don't have to do that. And we agreed.
It was already done.
Okay, well,
So
it was already done. We had already made that revision, but that's not, I mean, there's just other things here that to keep revising the plan. If we're at an impasse with these other things, it's really not, it's just, we're going nowhere. I'm just making revisions and you're not even in agreement with this crossing even being a viable crossing. If you're saying this preferred alternative is no way going to come down the pipe, that we're pushing you to alternative 4, then these basins, if we go to alternative 4, the basins won't be there anyway. So if this isn't an alternative, that the commission's even gonna be entertaining, what is the sense to making all the changes? He doesn't want to spend all this engineering money to do it.
So Rob, you know, just as a point of fact, the construction of those basins and the crossing itself and the replication is going to be required, and the buffer zone enhancements that are going to be required. Now they have to factor into the cost as well, right? For your preferred alternative.
Well, that's true, and we have that in our preferred, but we haven't factored any of that into the alternatives that go the other way.
Because the stormwater for alternative 4 would be more.
Correct.
Because there's more road.
But there's no crossing.
Agreed.
No crossing. Agreed.
So there's going to be a savings there too, right?
Well, that's somewhat of a savings. It's not.
Okay.
There's already a crossing in place where we're going, so it's not as expensive as other crossings. But
So-
that's not, so the point is we're making is, if we're not gonna get past the alternatives and the degraded areas, then, I mean, all this other stuff is for what? I mean, we have to get over these things have to take place first.
So your point is that you're not moving them, is just you're not moving it yet until the decision is reached on the alternatives.
That's correct.
We want to know if it's potentially worth.
Correct. Okay.
worth
So
the
you're just,
expense.
it's not that you're not going to do it. It's just that there's no point in doing it right now based on where we are in our discussions.
Correct. That's correct.
Now, hypothetically, if we go with your preferred alternative, we would still be having the discussion about moving these basins. If we agree on that we would at least have that discussion.
Yes.
Yes.
And that would be something that you would probably have to at least look at and potentially go forward at that point, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So the other thing on this that I think is difficult is that, you know, we're talking about the definition of degraded, and then you know, redevelopment, you know, which includes reuse. But you know, but we have it, but I, you know, I'm sure we don't have a stated consensus anyway on, you know, what is degraded out there. I guess I would like to ask, you know, simply, I identified the area of bare sand out there as degraded, and my hope was that would be a very straightforward kind of nod, that area, you know, clearly lacks topsoil, lacks any leaf litter, lacks any vegetation, and is degraded.
We agree with that.
Okay, good. So then that goes to the more subtle area, you know, that has the pines, which you know, has an absence of topsoil, which I believe is, you know, from this definition that I have up on the screen, qualifies as degraded, recognizing that if there were concurrence on that point, that we still then have the performance standard down below about an improvement. But we can't talk about the performance standard unless we have an understanding of where we are with respect to the extent of degraded. When can we even go there? By go there, I mean look at the redevelopment standard. Now, we just agreed that out in the bare sand, excuse me, we can go there. We can go to that redevelopment question, and then, you know, but you know, what's so that's what I'm asking. That's why I've been it's part of what Rob was just talking about, you know, moving forward, you know, moving forward with an understanding of where we are.
Mr. Chair, quick question.
Sure.
Rob, Paul, rather, do you have further down in this document? I didn't remember seeing it when I scanned through it. A map which shows highlighted the areas that you have identified that are sand and degraded, and we kind of agreed upon that. Versus the pine growing areas which you claim don't have any topsoil, but I've never heard of a pine growing without some sort of soil. So if it's not topsoil, what kind of soil is it that's holding up pines? But some sort of map, because we're talking about areas and I don't know how much we're talking about. I've been to the site, but I can't put it in perspective.
We do, I'm in the wrong document here, sorry. We have that, I can't remember. We have that on a plan. I don't remember. Let me just look quick here.
In the absence of a plan, I'll ask this, maybe this will serve for my purposes, at least of maybe the other commission members. The sandy degraded areas that have no topsoil as a percentage of the disturbed riverfront area, what percentage are they out of the total disturbed riverfront areas that we're looking at? 5%, 80%? Approximate, in a sense.
Say less than 50%.
Okay, so we still have a substantial, however many square feet that comes to area. It's not like 90% is sand and then 10% is trees and some nice stuff. It's much more, and it's mixed in between, correct, Matt? It's like broken up. It's not one stretch of sand, and I didn't think so from the areas I remember seeing.
Yeah, so this plan here, I'm gonna go and just, if I can, just let me. I just want to highlight. So this, I want to make sure I get this right. I think this. So that's a chunk of it. This area up here is the bare sand. So I have, it's a little hard to see here at this scale, but
It's kind of the problem we've had with some of the plans, Paul, being able to determine the resource areas, especially at the 60 scale.
well, it's just on the
No, I mean, it's
But the tree line is shown here, so that's you've traced the tree line. That's kind of where the distinction was.
so there's this is the bare sand area on the back side of the crossing. The road, you know, Prospect Street's to the left in this picture, in this plan. This is obviously the crossing. So the bare sand is, you know, there's the cart path here, and then it extends up into this area over here, which is outside of the, you know, the proposed road footprint. But within the proposed road footprint, this is that big open bare sand area in the back, on the back side. And then it continues down. I didn't highlight it here, but you can see the cart path here is labeled on the plan. And then this just to orient you, this is the old railroad grade coming out here. This one.
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman, you know, looking at this plan, we can see that the proposed road alignment would require, you know, significant alteration of riverfront area that we have all agreed is not presently degraded. I think I guess that's a point of question, or do we see that? Do we agree with that?
I'm having a hard time understanding Matt.
So
It's his
we're
microphone.
looking at the proposed road here.
Yep.
And at least a portion of the footprint of that proposed road will be run through non-degraded riverfront area. Right, if you look at,
I would agree with that, yes.
Well, I don't think that's what Paul's saying, that that's all degraded.
that, well, this is why I'm addressing the commission with this line, so question. So I'm just making a statement or observation that I have difficulty applying redevelopment standards to work in non-degraded riverfront area, undeveloped, non-degraded riverfront area. I don't think that we should apply redevelopment standards, performance standards to work in that kind of river. And that's something that, again, this gets back to the point that DEP this has not been adjudicated. This is the Wild West, really, in terms of project evaluation at this stage. But that's, I think that's the parsing the degraded from non-degraded and then applying different performance standards accordingly, is the way that I generally try to approach this kind of project.
Right. I tell you what, I think we've put our cards on the table somewhat. I think what we'll need to do, we'll wait for BSC to complete their review or complete their comments. How many people were present at the walk where we looked at that alternative? I know Matt was there. Mike was there.
I think Brian was. Did
Paul
Brian-
was there. I was there and Ian was there.
I was there for some of it, but not the whole.
Yeah, Brian, I don't think you made it all the way around.
Right.
I was not at that one, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, you were there either. I'm wondering if it would be better for us to go out there and take a look at it again, so that all of us can see it and visualize it and get a handle on the length of the roadway and in the areas that would be impacted. Would that be advantageous to?
Well, didn't Brian not make it because he wasn't feeling well from the
Yeah, he was
exertion?
still recovering from a concussion. Yes. Oh, no, I'm not faulting anybody for.
Oh, the question.
Take it.
I think Ariane's bringing up is if Brian would benefit by going again, is he up to going? Is that what you're shooting at, Ariane?
Yeah, kind of like, Brian, do you feel physically better enough or like that you'd be able to do that? Or do you think that it would just be like the same as last time and then therefore not beneficial? Or alternatively, I was going to suggest maybe if you still have that drone that, you know, maybe want to fly it around a little.
Pretty bad.
I mean, I can walk things. The only thing I'm concerned about is if there's snow cover or something, it's really kind of
Slippery.
I don't want to be back in the same boat. It took me 4 months.
No.
to recover, so.
And if there's snow cover, it's a lot more difficult to look at the lay of the land. We don't usually
Yeah.
do work in the winter, but this has been an unusual winter. So, I mean, if we can, if Neil would like to avail himself of a shot at looking at the alternative, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that BSC would have to be there. You know, Lou may not want us to be out there unsupervised. I don't know. I mean, we know the way by now. Ariane or Noel, do you have something available over the next couple of weeks? Maybe we're not this Saturday, but possibly on, you know, the next couple Saturdays after that, where we can take a look while we wait for BSC's comments. Then we'll.
I have this Saturday after next, I think, but I think I was out at the site. I think I purposely set several alarms, so I'd wake up on time.
You were,
I'm available on the 21st, Mr. Chairman.
the 21st might work.
I think I
Yeah,
am too.
I think I am too.
Okay.
And
I think
I would, I know I've been to the site once, but I would like to look at another view of the
Dream Crossing.
so-called degraded areas,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's a great
the
idea.
alleged
Yeah.
Okay.
degradation.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, quick question. Have we heard any more in the last month or two since I last asked this question about how the town of Franklin, if they have responded, because that was going to be pivotal to the development of the
Does
project?
Bob or Paul know anything?
I can. I actually asked that question of Mr. Petrosi this afternoon.
Uh-huh.
So Mr. Petrosi appealed, which I guess means went to court with the planning board. The issue has been I don't want to use the wrong legal terms, but I'll paraphrase, don't hold me to the particulars, but there's been an agreement that it will go back to the planning board and the planning board will approve it, which as I understand means, you know, granting one or more waivers. But it is not inked, but it has been agreed upon that he will get his Franklin subdivision
Okay.
blessing.
So it's remanded back to the Franklin Planning Board.
It was remanded, right? It was remanded, but not just remanded, but remanded with an agreement by the parties about how it will be resolved. But it has not. But my understanding is that that agreement's been made, but it's necessary for the planning board to advertise and hold a hearing and go through that process. But that it is more or less a done deal.
Okay. So Mike, apparently it's a permit from Franklin is pending.
Well, that's helpful to know. Just don't want to spin our wheels if it was a no.
Well,
or if
that's a good point, because if the court said no, there's no access. Okay. So let's work on the 21st. Weather conditions permitting, but the long-term weather is looking pretty good.
Mhm.
So we have a message here from one of the abutters. What we'll do, we'll ask Paul to contact Lou and see if it will be possible for the abutters to walk with us. It's his purview, his decision. We'll abide by that. And then I think what we can do is, based on what he says, the administrator can contact a representative of the abutters and let them know what that decision is.
Okay.
Okay.
I will put that question forward.
Okay.
Can I ask Matt, do you have a timeline for your review?
Yeah, it's my intention to get this out as soon as I can. Things went south on us on a project out west, so I'm dealing with some serious erosion control problems out there. So kind of been a bit of a hiccup, but I'm going to work in the next couple of days.
Don't they elicit a response?
Thank you.
Doesn't he elicit a response?
Yeah, well, they're gonna have an opportunity to respond to that. So
No, I mean, yeah, Paul, did you ever respond to the BSC peer review? The environmental portion? I don't remember getting anything.
It's been so long. I thought that I did. We just got one There's just been one submittal, as I recall. Is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, well, we talked about this last time. I think there were two. There was one, I'm thinking August, I may be wrong, but there was one a week after that, like the 14th.
I don't know that I responded on a point-by-point basis, but I believe that I've addressed everything, but I'll look at that.
Please.
Yeah, typically what we do is just, we keep everything concise and organized in the peer review responses, just so that we have everything together.
So, as I recall, we had an initial peer review on August 3rd. There was a supplemental letter regarding the mean annual high water, which you did respond to subsequently. There was a letter regarding the enforcement order. There was a letter regarding riverfront area, degraded riverfront area, and an additional supplemental peer review. Oh, that was engineering.
Oh, do I have it?
Matt, your audio dropped out. So did I understand you that there were 4?
Yeah, by my count, yeah.
All right, I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, I think we had this discussion at the last hearing, and I had resent it to you, Paul.
All right, I apologize if I dropped the
all
ball on that.
Okay, so this is 7.
And through the chair, I don't know if we've received an updated revised plan set showing the new old mean annual high water for the riverfront area. Has that been this sheet that's being displayed right now? I don't think I've actually used that as a plan set.
That's October 11 plan set, Matt.
Okay, I do see that. Thank you. Had a lot of plans that I think I might have.
Mr. Chair, speaking of plan sets, does the administrator want to make a formal request for a formal confirmation from Paul? Not to put you on the spot, Paul, but since I've heard it several times myself, would rather not have to hear it again in another meeting. Can we get the appropriate size with the color definition, borders for the different lines and so forth that we've been requesting
Well,
in whatever next plan set submitted?
apparently from what Rob was saying, Paul doesn't want to pay for it. It's funny because that's the very first hearing. That's something that we asked for. The plans are so busy, and Paul well knows that 60 scale plans don't meet the criteria for review under the WPA or the law.
Well, I don't know if the applicant will change his mind if we are continuing the dialogue, haven't made a decision yet, but need to have something to be able to accurately work off of in order to make a final determination one way or another for alternative one, his preferred rather, or another alternative. I mean, if we don't have the right information from him, I don't really feel the applicant has a lot to complain about whatever decision is made.
So we can, we've provided 40 scale plans. You have that in your plan set.
Some of them, yeah.
All the grading sheets that show topography, you have 40 scale plans.
Yeah, we had a lot of difficulty discerning where the riverfront areas were in the buffer zones and so forth.
What would you like for color coding? What do you want to see? I mean, there's a lot of lines on the plan, I will admit. You have a 25-foot buffer, 50-foot wetland
50.
buffer, 100-foot wetland buffer.
Yeah.
Then you have the 100-foot riparian, the 200-foot riparian.
Yeah.
And what else is there?
Well, that's pretty much it. But what happened, Rob, when we were out there in the field, we had the plan set. Paul was there, and in fact, Lou was there. and we were all trying to figure out where the lines were, and they were just lost in the grading. It's really busy normally. And what happened is when you enlarge some of the 40 scale plans, Rob,
Yeah.
so some of the lines disappeared. So it's if you could just give anything, we don't have a preference for color.
All right, let me see what I can do with that. I'll
That would
provide.
be really helpful, especially if you could get them before we go out in the field.
Sure. Yep.
All right, perfect. All right, so
If I
we have,
may, before we move on, Cliff, just 1 second. I just want to go back to the plan sheet we've been looking at with the proposed degraded area. Actually has a revision date of 12/7/22.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure I have not received that. Plans.
Okay, so we didn't give a full set of plans on that date. We just gave their degraded area plans and the alternatives. You didn't receive, you don't have any of those?
No.
Okay. We can provide that.
And that can go through Ann.
I believe, Cliff, that you probably have that in Paul's submittal. So maybe you can forward it to him. Paul submitted those plans.
we have the little plans.
No, I only have the small.
We have the small plans.
Oh, you didn't get them you didn't get an
No.
email? Oh, I'll email
Hold
them to you.
on, I may be wrong. Paul, you sent me,
No, I don't think, I think Rob misspoke. I looked and found the plan set because I hadn't put it in the right folder from an email it was actually an email from Lou, not from me.
I can email all the alternatives in that degraded area plan.
Okay,
That
yeah,
would probably be cleanest,
we only
Rob.
have them. Rob, we do have them, but they're small.
You don't have them in electronic.
Oh, do you have them electronically?
um,
It's a bear to try to expand them and look at them on the computer screen, but
No, I just wanted to send them to Matt. He doesn't
Oh,
have them
okay.
at all. Matt doesn't have them, correct, Matt?
That's right.
what?
That's what, I was
We'll
just
have to
trying to
s-
send them to Matt electronically, so he would have them.
I just want to make sure I've got.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
most Up to date.
Okay, all right, Rob, that'd be great. This is for December, the December 27th,
I think it's December 7th.
27th.
Is it 27th? I don't remember.
Okay, yeah, okay. It was a holiday week.
It was a December something date.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was the 7th on my plan. It says the 7th. Not the 27th. We weren't working on the 27th.
Well,
It was Christmas.
okay. So here's what we'll do. We're gonna have some work to do. We're gonna have to keep up the communication. I think I'd like to continue this hearing. I'll entertain a motion to conduct a site visit on Saturday, January 21st at 8:30 and continue the hearing to the evening of February 22nd at 7.
We don't have an earlier hearing than that, Cliff? That seems pretty far out.
Well, we're gonna have peer review, we're gonna have responses to peer review. We have agendas building up. And right now we have nothing on the 22nd. We could shoot for February 8th.
we have to do it.
I mean, if you don't want to consent to the 22nd, we can try putting you on the 8th.
Well, I don't think, we're not gonna, we're gonna get comments from Matt.
Yeah,
But I don't think we're gonna have time. I don't think the intention is to try and respond before the next meeting. We'd like to get his comments, and, I mean, our goal at this point is to resolve two issues. One is the degraded area and one is the alternative analysis. And then we can deal with all the other issues. So that's why I'd like to just keep it moving. And if we can get in here on the 8th and we can just work on those things, you're gonna go out and do another site walk. Matt's gonna finish up his comments. And if we can just get those two items, that's really what we're looking to finalize. And then the other things we can work through. Once we get those two big items resolved, we know where we're going and what direction, then we can make revisions accordingly. So that's why I'm just trying to keep it moving, keeping it closer to, the 8th
all
would
right,
be
well,
better.
we
for
have
us.
we have a gap on the 8th. We have a gap at 8.
Okay,
So here's what we'll do. Let me rephrase. I'll entertain a motion to conduct a site visit on Saturday, the 21st at 8:30 and to continue the hearing to the evening of January 8th, February 8th at 8.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion? Okay, there are fewer people here, so I won't go with a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Okay, I heard everybody. That's a unanimous vote.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks. Take care now. Okay, commissioners, don't leave yet. We have just a couple of simple things to do.
Cliff,
Take
are you
that-
using a filter?
I'm going to a filter.
Yeah, on your video?
No, he's
No.
just blurry. It's late.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking it looked like it put like blushy cheeks on him. They were like perfectly round in that last section, like 2 circles, and eyebrows were very pronounced. I thought it was maybe like a filter, beauty filter.
Just
Can you put the dog with the big bulgy eyes on his head?
Just-
there?
So,
Yeah.
photogenic.
Yeah.
all right, well, what we have some minutes here. We have the minutes of October 26th and the minutes of November 9th. Mike has made a couple of suggestions that
Really
will,
minor.
will include.
Yeah.
Did anybody else have any questions or comments on them?
No, sir.
I don't entertain a motion to accept the minutes for the 26th of October and the 9th of November.
So moved with the thanks to Tina for taking those minutes.
Yes, thank you, Tina. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, very good. I think that's it.
Signing, anything?
No, nothing to sign yet, but we have some certificates of compliance that will be coming up that we'll need some signatures on soon.
Just emails when you want them.
Okay, I think that's it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay
everybody.
safe.
Motion to
Yes.
adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second, third.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you and good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Aye.
Good night. Feel
Bye.
better.